I'm going to go over how to solve the hotel reservation FRQ. Once again, you have the hotel class, but you also have the reservation class. And a reservation object has a name and a room number, and has a get room number method and get guest name room method. Now, if I go back to the hotel class, it has two instance variables: an array of reservation objects called rooms, and an array list of strings called waitlist. Then the first method you're supposed to implement is the request room method. And so you're given the name of a guest that wants a room, and either you make a reservation for them, or if there's no empty rooms, then you add their name to the wait list. The return type is reservation, which is either the reference to the new reservation you just made, or null, if they were put in the wait list. And so first you need to loop through and find the first empty room. And once again, this is how you check to see if a room is empty. Basically, you see if it's null, which means it's not storing a reservation object. And if that's true, then you make a new reservation. And let me jump back to the reservation class. You can see there's one, it has one constructor. So there's the only way you can make a reservation. There isn't a no argument constructor. Once again, if you make any constructors yourself, Java won't provide any. So this is it. If I go back to the hotel class, I'm saying that is the only way you can make a reservation. You give it the name, you give the room number, and but that's what I represents. And actually, I used I because we're looping through our array, but room might have been a better choice of variable because it is the room number actually as well. And so you make a reservation, putting that guest in that room, and then you store it in the array of rooms at that spot. And then you return a reference to that array, that object that you just made, that reservation object. And then once again, if you loop through the whole thing and don't find an empty room, then you just add the name to the wait list. Once again, wait list is an array list of strings, and so the array list add method expects to be given a string, and you got to keep that straight. The array is an array of reservation objects. The array list is an array list of string objects. But anyway, then you return null. Why? Because no reservation was made for that person. And that's an important detail. When you get to the next part, you remember the fact that this method could return null. Now, we move on to the next part, the cancel and reassign method. And basically, you're given a reservation, and you're supposed to cancel it. And if that, which opens up a room, first of all, and if there's people on the wait list waiting for that room, you assign the first person in the wait list to that room. And then you return a reference to the reservation, the new reservation for that room, which might be null. Now, the first approach I showed and talked about was looping through until you got to a room with the same name as that on the reservation. And someone pointed out that was unnecessary because the reservation tells you what room it's for as well, not just the name. And so, I'm going to show you two ways to do this without a loop. First of all, let me say I highly recommend, you call the get room number method for that reservation, but then store that. And I'm going to change this right now. Like I said, index is fine because it is the index in the array, but it's also the room number. And so maybe room index would be a better name. But in fact, I think I'll try that. You have to strike a balance. I is good, but because it's short, but it's not descriptive. I do like to reserve I for when it represents index in an array or a string or an array list or whatever. But that's all it means. So, once again, having a more descriptive variable name is always better. And yes, it means more typing because now it's 10 characters or so. 9 instead of 1. But it pays for itself if it makes the code better and easier to read. Now, like I said, there's two approaches. Here, we got the room number that we're trying to cancel. And you want to see if there's anyone on the wait list. There's two ways to do that. One is to call the isEmpty method, and then the ArrayList class has an isEmpty method, and say, okay, if it's not empty, or just check the size and see if the size is not 0. Either way is fine. And then, so if there is someone on the wait list, you're going to put them reserve this room for them. And so you make a new reservation, and you're going to get that name, which will be a string from the wait list, and then pair it with the room number and make a new reservation. One little detail I want to say, right here, I just call the remove method, and I guess what I'm getting at is you wanted to you need to get that that first name from the wait list, but you also need to remove it from a wait list. And you might have been thinking, well, okay, I'll call the get method, then I'll call the remove method, but you didn't need to call both. The remove method gives you the thing it removes. The other thing is, what could have been done is, like up here, I made a local variable to store the room number. And I did that because you can see room index got used 4 different places in my code. And I would have had to put res.getRoom number in all 4 of those places. And it just doesn't look as good. And so that's why I chose to store it in a local variable. Whereas here, I chose to just put the method call inside the constructor instead of making local variable on the line above and storing it, because that wouldn't have benefited. It would not have made the code cleaner, because this only appears one place. And so either way is fine. Whichever is more comfortable to you, but also whatever looks better makes cleaner code. And so it's not a hard and fast rule as to whether you should make a local variable to store the result of a method call. Now, finish this version up. Once again, if there was someone waiting for a room, we made a reservation for them, and then store it, and then return that reservation. That's the return type was reservation. If there was no one on the wait list, on the other hand, we just empty the room, so set it to null, and then return null. Now right here I said return null. I could have said return room index, because I just set it to null. Either way would have been fine. Now, another approach, which is a little shorter, is very similar. First, we start by storing the room index. Now, I'm not going to change the variable name this time. And then we go and empty the room first. And then we say, okay, if there is someone waiting for that room, we make a new reservation for that person and for their room number and store that in that spot. And then we just return that spot in the array at the end. And it could be null, or it could be storing that new reservation. But it's a little bit cleaner code. But once again, either approach is fine, whichever you prefer, whichever you're more comfortable with, whichever matches your thinking. All right, that is it. You guys have a good day.